Welcome to the deep dive. We are jumping right into a moment of uh, catastrophic political failure and just radical violent recovery.
Yeah, it's a chronicle that reads less like ancient history and more like an immediate dispatch from a palace under siege.
It really does. Our sources give us this almost forensic look at a sudden violent transfer of power right in the heart of the great Persian Empire, and it all hinges on a single, deadly, royal secret.
And that's our mission today, really, to move beyond just summarizing. We're going to be performing a deep analysis of this political scene. I mean, we're examining the fear, the cunning, and the raw ambition that drove these figures.
During the Magian usurpation and then the coup that followed.
Exactly. We're treating this record as an immediate report of real events, a moment-by-moment chronicle of shifting loyalties and life-or-death decisions.
And the core challenge for you, the listener, is seeing just how quickly absolute power can fracture.
Yeah.
You have the ruler, King Cambyses, far away, he's mentally unstable, and the secret of his brother's death is suddenly weaponized against him. So we're tracing the emotional shockwaves through three critical movements. Cambyses' sudden, fatal downfall, the forensic exposure of the usurper through this terrifying nocturnal investigation, and then finally, the dramatic, near-fatal coup that results in a profound redesign of the Persian government itself.
So, okay, let's unpack this instability. We begin in a state of crisis. Cambyses, who's the son of Cyrus the Great, has been campaigning in Egypt for years. He's grown paranoid, mentally erratic.
And crucially, he's committed the ultimate internal security failure.
The ultimate failure. He murdered his own legitimate brother, Smerdis, before she left Persia, and then tried to seal that act by keeping the death a rigorously guarded secret.
And that secret, that's what created the political vacuum that deception just instantly filled.
Yes.
So part one, the sudden betrayal and the king's demise.
Yeah.
The narrative opens with just an act of staggering audacity by a man named Patizaethes. Cambyses had left this Magian as the steward of his house in Susa.
And Patizaethes shrewdly perceived that the king's brother, Smerdis, was, presumed alive by the general populace, while only a select few knew he'd been executed.
He's exploiting that information gap.
Completely. His whole scheme was based on exploiting the truth and the lie at the same time. He didn't just invent a ghost, he found a perfect physical match.
Which is just incredible luck on his part.
It's unbelievable. Patizaethes had his own brother, who was also named Smerdis, and incredibly was physically very similar to the deceased son of Cyrus. This uncanny resemblance, plus the distance and silence from Cambyses, it made the whole scheme viable.
So with Smerdis the Magian installed on the royal throne in Susa, the action is immediate. It's decisive. This isn't some slow burn political maneuvering.
Not at all. Heralds are dispatched across the entire length of the sprawling Achaemenid Empire, and they're carrying this treasonous proclamation demanding absolute obedience to the new king, Smerdis, son of Cyrus.
The whole success of the plot depended on that speed and that distance, right?
Yes, absolutely. They needed the official word to reach the vast armies and regional governors before Cambyses could possibly react. And the most critical herald is the one sent west, racing to intercept Cambyses and his army.
And he finds them at Ecbatana, a town in Syria, which is important. It's far from the Median capital of the same name.
Yes, a crucial detail later on.
So just imagine that scene. Cambyses, the conqueror of Egypt, he's surrounded by his army, and a herald steps forward. And he delivers the news not as a message, but as a command.
The king is dead. Long live Smerdis.
And Cambyses' reaction is instant, but it's completely misdirected. His paranoia, which has been honed over years of isolation and violence, it just fixates on the one man who knew the dark truth.
Exactly. His first thought isn't political conspiracy, it's personal treachery. By the man he trusted most, Prexaspes, the man he had commanded to execute his brother.
The source says the king just fixes his eyes on Prexaspes and demands an account. He says something like, "Is it thus, Prexaspes, that you did my behest?"
The weight of Cambyses' madness just lands squarely on Prexaspes' shoulders.
So Prexaspes, facing a king who is known to kill on a whim, has to navigate this madness and save his own life. What does he say?
He offers a masterful defense. It's steeped in immediate, verifiable loyalty. He solemnly affirms that he did the king's bidding and his own hands buried him. He doesn't deny the murder.
Right. He confirms the execution was completed successfully. So that eliminates the possibility of betrayal on his part.
Precisely. And then he shifts the focus from himself to the external threat. He offers this crucial pragmatic counsel. Pursue the herald immediately and interrogate him to find the source of the lie. This pivot, moving the king's anger away from him and toward the usurper, it buys him time.
So the herald is pursued, he's brought back. Praxaspes questions him, not about the king's name, but about the messenger's identity. He asks, "Did the real Smerdis give you this charge?"
And the herald, under duress, tells the whole truth. He identifies the true originator of the proclamation, Herodotus the Magian.
And the whole atmosphere changes.
Instantly. Cambyses declares Praxaspes innocent, but the name Smerdis the Magian triggers a profound mental collapse. The king instantly understands the identity of the rebels, Herodotus the steward, and his brother, the Magian Smerdis. And this is the moment the external threat just penetrates all his interior defenses.
This is where the emotional narrative becomes just devastating. When Cambyses hears that specific name, what does the source material tell us about his immediate emotional and intellectual shift?
The text states that at the name of Smerdis the Magian, Cambyses was smitten to the heart. This is a shock of profound realization. It connects the external event to his own internal guilt.
So the name triggers the memory of his dream.
The dream of Smerdis sitting on the throne with his head reaching to heaven, the terrifying irony just hits him. He killed his legitimate brother without cause, motivated by a paranoid vision that referred not to a sibling, but to this look-alike usurper.
A total reckoning. It's not just a political mistake. It's a moral and personal catastrophe. He weeps bitterly for his brother, realizing this immense wrong he committed achieved nothing politically.
Nothing. He lost his kingship anyway, having unjustly paid the highest price. The source describes him as being in great grief for all his mishap.
And this paralyzing grief leads directly to his physical end.
It does. In his intense desire to march forthwith to Susa against the Magian, that grief is translated into blinding haste. Cambyses leaps onto his horse.
And the source gives us that crucial specific detail.
As he mounts, the scabbard knob of his sword slips off and the naked blade strikes his thigh. This is a fatal accident born purely out of his emotional state. It's the ultimate manifestation of his misfortune.
And this moment is just thick with fatalism. He'd been told by an oracle that his life would end at Ecbatana. He thought he knew what that meant, the great Median capital.
But standing there, wounded and dying, he asks the name of the town.
And learning he is an Ecbatana of Syria is the final, shattering blow to his sanity and his political control.
He realizes the old prophecy from Budo referred not to the Median capital, but to this small, inconsequential town. The combined shock of the wound and the confirmation of misfortune brings him back to his senses. He finally understands he is powerless against fate.
He clings to life for 20 agonizing days as the wound festers. But before he dies, he gathers the most honorable of the Persians for his final, vital political address. This is his attempt to salvage the empire from beyond the grave.
And this address is a painful, intimate political confession. It's delivered by a dying man. He reveals the strictly concealed secret, the execution of his brother, and admits his folly, calling himself a fool for thinking human power could turn fate aside.
His interiority is defined by this retrospective regret and a desperate final attempt to steer the Achaemenid future. So what are the explicit stakes of his dying charge?
The charge is a terrible curse. Cambyses uses his last breath to charge the Persians, especially the Achaemenids, not to suffer the sovereignty to fall again into Median hands.
And that's key context, right? The Magians were a Median caste, not ethnically Persian.
Exactly. Cambyses is explicitly reframing the usurpation as a national, racial, and political betrayal, a reversal of Cyrus's founding conquest. He demands they recover the kingdom or face his terrible curse. He's laying the foundation for a civil war.
But the men standing around him, the future leaders of Persia, they cannot accept this truth. The source notes they fully disbelieve the tale of Smerdis' death and the Magian usurpation.
Yeah, they thought he was lying out of spite, trying to provoke a pointless war against the rightful heir.
This mass denial creates the space for the Magian to solidify his rule. The truth is just too catastrophic to accept.
And there's one man who suffers most from this denial, Praxaspes. With Cambyses dead, it is no longer safe for him to say that he had slain the son of Cyrus with his own hands.
So he retreats.
Immediately, into self-preservation. He stoutly denies the murder he had just confessed to the dying king. The one witness who could verify the coup has been silenced by fear.
Cambyses dies after 7 years and 5 months, leaving no issue. The Magian reigns without fear. The profound instability of a single paranoid action fratricide has handed the world's greatest empire to an imposter simply because the truth was too horrific for the nobility to believe.
And for 7 months, the Magian reigns without fear. And this is crucial for you to understand. He was not a tyrant. He was a political genius, at least in the short term. He implemented measures designed for immediate mass popular support.
And this is the massive political wedge he drove between the Persian nobility and the general populace. The source explicitly details his strategy for legitimacy. He greatly benefited all his subjects. Can you expand on the scope of that benefit?
Well, the Magian proclaimed 3 years of complete freedom from military service and from tribute. For the vast conquered populations of the empire, the Asiatics, this was a revolutionary policy.
I mean, imagine the tax burden of maintaining the recommended military machine, building roads, funding imperial expansion.
And to lift that cost entirely for 3 years meant immense prosperity for the common people.
That is a critical insight. An imperial power depends entirely on the constant flow of tribute and manpower. The Magian was essentially buying short-term popular loyalty by ensuring long-term imperial bankruptcy.
Precisely. And the proof of its success is in the consequence. After his eventual death, all the Asiatics, except the Persians, wished him back. He secured popular loyalty immediately by appealing directly to their economic self-interest.
A policy that was destabilizing for the Persian elite, who relied on that tribute.
But stabilizing for the Magians' popular legitimacy.
But this carefully constructed peace was unsustainable, and suspicions began to surface among the nobility. The man who first acted on his distrust was Otanes, a rich and well-born Persian. What were the specific red flags in the Magians' behavior that raised Otanes' suspicion?
Otanes' suspicion was rooted in protocol. The Magian employed these severe isolationist tactics that just contradicted the behavior of a legitimate king. He never left the citadel.
Right. No public appearances, no reviews of the troops.
And, critically, he never summoned any notable Persian into his presence. A legitimate Achaemenid king would need constant engagement with the nobility to rule and affirm his legitimacy.
So this seclusion wasn't royal prerogative, it was.
It was desperate concealment. Otanes recognized that.
So Otanes needs proof, and he knows that the only people with close physical access to the Magian are the royal wives, one of whom is his own daughter, Fudim.
She had been married to Cambyses and was then taken by the Magian as one of his wives. Otanes is using his own child as an asset in a political assassination plot.
The methodology here is just chilling in its calculation.
It is. Otanes sends a message to his daughter asking the critical question. Is she lying with Smerdis, Cyrus's son, or another? And Fidam's honest reply reveals the difficulty of the situation. She doesn't know. She had never met the real Smerdis.
So she's useless as an eyewitness to his identity.
Useless. So Otanes presses her to find someone who could identify him, suggesting she ask Atossa, Cyrus's daughter and the Magian's wife, who would surely know her own brother.
He's mapping the Magian's security strategy, identifying the key witnesses he needs to access.
And Fidam's reply confirms the Magian's brilliant strategy of neutralizing potential witnesses, she says. She cannot get speech with Atossa, nor can I see any other of the women. The Magian had proactively sent all the royal wives to live apart, each in her appointed place.
That was a deliberate, calculated move to prevent exactly what Otanes was trying to do.
To stop them from comparing notes, sharing suspicions, and confirming the fraud. He locked down the palace and isolated every person who might recognize the difference.
With conventional identification impossible, Otanes is forced to turn to forensic evidence, demanding an act of lethal personal risk from his daughter.
The stakes are immense. Otanes' third message. Fidam must feel his ears when he sleeps. He must be punished as a fraud. Why the ears? The source provides the critical backstory. Cyrus, during his reign, had cut off the ears of this specific Magian Smerdis for some grave reason.
This physical mutilation, an indelible, undeniable defect, is the only path to verification when all other forms of identification are blocked.
Yeah.
So can we drill down on the specific, visceral danger Fidam faced here? What made verifying the ears a potential death sentence if she failed?
She's in the king's bed, in the deepest privacy of the citadel. Her father has commanded her to commit a physical, intimate invasion of the Magian's body. She replies that she will run very great risk and fears that if caught, he would surely make an end of her.
Her compliance is born of absolute terror and noble duty.
Exactly. If he woke up and realized her hands were on his head, she would be revealing her knowledge of his single greatest secret. It is a moment of impossible vulnerability.
And the moment itself is intensely vivid. She waits until he slumbered deeply and assures herself with much ease that he had no ears.
The ease suggests the mutilation was distinct and unmistakable. The Magian is definitively exposed by a terrified woman's nocturnal touch.
And this confirmation immediately elevates the crisis from dangerous political suspicion, which they couldn't act on,
to verifiable, actionable knowledge, which demands immediate, violent resolution. The fate of the empire now hinges on 7 men acting on the strength of a woman's terrified report.
So, with the forensic evidence secured, Otanes moves with extreme haste. He shares the intelligence with his 2 most trusted peers, Aspathines and Gobryas.
And this small nucleus of 3 then expands carefully. Each brings in 1 trusted partner, Intaphernes, Megabyzus, and Hydarnes, bringing the cabal to 6 Achaemenid nobles.
All the highest rank, bound by a shared lineage and a shared absolute risk. If they fail, their families face extinction.
But the 7th man is the disruptive element. Darius, son of Hystaspes, who has just arrived from Persia, is brought in and made their comrade.
And Darius, though he's the newcomer, immediately seizes control of the agenda, overriding the established conspirators. How does he do that? How does he achieve this immediate dominance?
He assumes he's the only one who knows the truth, having come directly from Persia with the sole purpose of dealing with the Magian. He realizes that a conspiracy is most vulnerable during the planning phase.
So he demands action forthwith, no delay.
Yes. He leverages urgency and his perceived credibility to seize dominance, arguing that prudence, the very thing Otanes recommends, is their enemy.
And it's more than a suggestion, it's a threat to the other 6 men.
It's an absolute threat. He warns them explicitly. If we let today pass, be assured that none will accuse you ere I do, for I will myself lay the whole matter before the Magian.
Wow.
He uses the threat of internal betrayal, the fear that one of them might crack under pressure and seek a reward from the Magian to enforce immediate action. He subordinates the entire group to his timeline through sheer political willpower. He establishes himself as the leader instantly.
Okay, now, as the 7 men are setting their plan, a critical parallel event unfolds that completely transforms the political landscape for the people outside the palace walls.
Right. The Magians, aware of the growing political ferment, try to neutralize the only man who possesses the secret of the true Smerdis' death, Praxaspes.
They try to co-opt him entirely, offering him immense wealth and swearing him to secrecy.
Arguing that Cambyses wronged him by killing his son. Their political mistake, however, is monumental. They decide to utilize his immense personal authority and give him a public platform.
They command him to address an assembly of Persians from a tower before the palace wall, publicly declaring that the current king is indeed Smerdis, son of Cyrus. They want him to use his voice to legitimize their entire 7-month deception.
And Praxaspes is now confronted with an ultimate moral choice. He puts away their demands, walks onto the tower, recounts Cyrus's lineage and good deeds, establishing his authority, and then, in a final overwhelming burst of conscience, he shatters the illusion.
He says, I was compelled by Cambyses to kill Smerdis, son of Cyrus. It is the Magians who now rule you.
This single declaration, spoken from a high platform before the gathered populace, is the public validation the conspirators needed. It destroys the Magians' legitimacy in a single moment.
And then comes the final, profound act.
After invoking a terrible curse on the Persians if they failed to avenge the true king, he throws himself headlong down from the tower, thus ending his honorable life.
This is a powerful, final moral pivot.
It is. Praxaspes, who was initially driven by self-preservation to deny the murder, chose a public, definitive death to reveal the critical truth. He sacrificed his life to prevent the empire from falling into Median hands, achieving an honorable end after a lifetime of compromising loyalty.
So the 7 conspirators setting forth for the attack learn about Praxaspes' sacrifice halfway there. The psychological impact must have been immediate.
It was. They now know the truth is public knowledge, which increases both the urgency and the risk. While Otanes' party urges waiting for the populace to riot, Darius insists the moment is now.
And the tension is immediately resolved by this potent specific omen.
They see 7 pairs of hawks chasing and tearing 2 pairs of vultures. The 7 men interpret this sign as a divine confirmation of foreordained victory. This belief solidifies their resolve to follow Darius's immediate plan of action.
The initial phase of their penetration relies entirely on their political status. The guards, out of reverence and fear for the high-ranking Persian nobility, just let them pass without question.
Their status is initially a more powerful weapon than any blade.
But the deeper into the palace they go, the higher the security increases. Coming into the courtyard, they are intercepted by the eunuchs, who serve as the Magians' inner circle of communication.
And the eunuchs threaten the guards and physically bar the conspirators' way. The Magians' final line of defense is purely internal and reliant on unquestioning loyalty.
This is the moment the plan breaks into explicit violence. The 7 drew their daggers and stabbed the eunuchs who barred their way, running into the men's apartment. They are now committed to a life-or-death confrontation.
The two Magians were inside, consulting on the political fallout of Prexaspes' public suicide, ironically, discussing the very event that sealed their fate. Seeing the violence, they react instantly. One grabs a bow, the other a spear.
And the spearman is effective in the close-quarters fight. He wounds Aspathynes in the thigh and Interphrenes severely in the eye.
Right. But the bowman, realizing his weapon is useless at this intimate range, flees into an adjoining dark chamber pursued by Darius and Gobryas. This is the ultimate climax, a fight in pitch darkness for the fate of an empire.
And Gobryas and the Magian are grappling in the dark. Darius hesitates, knife drawn, fearing he'll stab his comrade instead of the usurper.
And Gobryas' command in that darkness just defines the desperation. Thrust with your sword, though it be through both of us. He prioritizes success over his own life. Darius strikes, and by sheer luck or divine favor, as he later suggests, it is the Magian he kills.
So with the Magians dead, the 5 uninjured men cut off their heads, run out of the citadel, shouting and displaying the evidence to the assembled Persians, confirming Prexaspes' terrible truth.
And the immediate consequence is a collective, furious, and bloody reckoning. The Persians draw their own daggers and begin the massacre of the Magians.
The ensuing bloodshed was so profound that if nightfall had not intervened, the source states not one Magian would have been left alive.
That day became enshrined as the holy festival of the massacre of the Magians, a permanent political reminder of the importance of Persian rule.
So 5 days after the massacre, the 7 rebels, now the saviors of Persia, hold a council. And this is one of the most astonishing intellectual moments in history. These men, stained with violence, they pause to debate the absolute best form of government for the entire empire.
It's a remarkable instance of political self-determination. They have absolute power to define the structure of the world's largest empire. The source emphasizes that while the words uttered seem incredible to some later thinkers, they were definitely spoken by these men who had just risked everything.
It's a genuine clash of 3 foundational ideologies: monarchy, oligarchy, and democracy. Okay, let's start with perspective 1. Otanes, arguing for the rule of the multitude democracy, or isonomia, equality before the law. Why does he so passionately reject the very concept of monarchy?
Well, Otanes' argument is fundamentally about the corrupting nature of absolute power on human character. He holds that monarchy inherently leads to insolence, arising from satiety, having everything, and jealousy.
Hating the good, rejoicing in the evil.
Exactly. The monarch, unchecked and unaccountable, overturns established laws, rapes women, and executes citizens. For Otanes, the issue is structural. Even the best man on earth will lose his moral compass when given absolute, lifelong, unquestionable power.
And what does Otanes see as the superior virtue of rule by the multitude?
He argues for equality before the law, a system where no one man is above the rules. Offices are assigned by lot, preventing individual ambition from dominating, and the holders are constantly held accountable for their actions.
So the wisdom comes from collective deliberation, not from a single flawed individual.
For Otanes, true virtue lies in dispersed power.
Okay, moving to perspective 2. Megabyzus, arguing for the rule of the best men oligarchy. He agrees with Otanes that monarchy is dangerous, but he turns his scorn directly onto democracy.
Yeah, Megabyzus finds common ground with Otanes in despising the despot's insolence. But he sharply dismisses the rule of the common people. He calls the multitude foolish and violent, lacking the necessary education or foresight to govern effectively.
He says they rush headlong and drive blindly onward like a river in spate.
A great line. They lack the knowledge and the internal discipline required for good governance.
So if the common people are ill-equipped, who should rule?
He suggests electing a company of the best men, an oligarchy of the political elite, to ensure the best counsels. He argues that the knowledge and virtue required to govern are not dispersed among the masses, but concentrated among men like themselves. High-born, experienced, and successful.
An argument for rational, knowledgeable governance by a stable aristocracy.
Right.
And finally, perspective 3, Darius, who successfully argues for the rule of the one-man monarchy. He is arguing to restore the very system that led to Cambyses' tyranny and the Magian fraud. He must have powerful counter-arguments.
He does. Darius leverages history and political stability as his primary tools. Against oligarchy, he argues that the shared power immediately fractures the ruling elite. The intense desire to be chief leads inevitably to bitter enmity, faction, and bloodshed.
A civil war that naturally resolves itself into a monarchy anyway, as one man wins out. So oligarchy is inherently unstable.
Inherently unstable. And what's his ultimate criticism of rule by the commonality?
Democracy.
He argues that democracy is not governed by virtue but by evil-mindedness. It provides the perfect stage for bad men to conspire against the state until a popular champion rises, becomes the people's idol, and is quickly established as a monarch.
So both alternative systems are just unstable detours that merely return to a monarchy, proving the original system is the most natural and strongest.
That's his logic.
His final and perhaps most persuasive argument appeals directly to national identity and the memory of their founder.
And that's the core of his appeal to the ecumen and nobility, he asks. Where did their freedom and greatness come from? Cyrus. A single virtuous ruler gave them freedom. They should not repeal the good laws of our fathers.
He links monarchy not to tyranny, but to the origin of Persian liberty and prosperity.
And his arguments for stability and historical precedent resonate most strongly with the nobles, cementing their 4-3 decision in favor of monarchy.
The voting is decisive. 4 of the 7 declare for Darius's monarchy. Otanes' proposal for radical political change is defeated.
Darius has successfully used political theory to ensure the continuation of the centralized regime he intends to lead.
But Otanes, defeated in the ideological battle, executes a brilliant piece of political negotiation. He knows he can't change the system, so he carves out an unparalleled position of privilege for himself and his family. What were the specific conditions he demanded?
He refuses to be ruled by the system he despised. He demands the condition that neither he nor his posterity shall be subject to any one of you, provided they transgress no Persian law.
That's unprecedented. It's a private arrangement securing his unique, enduring status of freedom from the authority of the reigning king.
He essentially ensures his house remains a sovereign entity within the Persian framework. The others, recognizing his crucial role in exposing the Magian, agree.
This detail highlights the supreme self-interest of the Persian nobility. Otanes prioritizes his house's autonomy and lasting security over the political structure of the empire.
And in return for their shared risk, the 6 victorious conspirators, all except Otanes, who explicitly opted out of the contest for the throne decree, special honors for the winner, Darius, but also strategically cement their own continuing influence over the new king.
What specific privileges did these 6 co-conspirators secure to ensure they were not merely pushed aside by the new monarch?
The decree grants them permanent political access and familial integration. They earned the right of unannounced palace entry unless the king is sleeping with a woman.
Meaning they could never be denied access or kept away from the political center of power.
And critically, the king must take wives only from their households. This ensures that the next generation of the royal family is inextricably linked to the conspirators' lineage, limiting the power of the new monarch through their established network of family ties.
So, having settled the question of what system they would have, they now needed to decide who would be the monarch, and the method they choose is utterly bizarre. It's this blend of divine omen with practical logistics.
It really is. The king will be the one whose horse should first be heard to neigh at sunrise in the suburb of the city. This blends a reliance on supposed divine favor, the gods choosing the correct horse, with a practical, verifiable mechanism.
It avoids a messy internal election and externalizes the choice to fate.
Right. But Darius immediately realizes this election is too important to leave purely to chance. He seeks out his clever groom, Oberes, demanding a plan to ensure his horse is the first. This shift from noble conspiracy to the cunning of a common groom is just fascinating.
It reveals Darius's focus on practical cunning over pure noble lineage, which contrasts sharply with the earlier Achaemenid focus.
Oberes' plan is an ancient masterpiece of behavioral manipulation. At nightfall, he brings a mare, especially favored by Darius' horse, and tethers her precisely in the spot in the suburb where the men will ride at dawn. He then leads the stallion around her, lets him touch her, and permits the mating.
So he's conditioning the stallion to react passionately to the scent and location.
The election moment arrives at dawn. The 6 remaining riders are out. As they reach the prepared spot, Darius' horse trots up to the spot where the mare had been, and he whinnied at the specific stimulus.
And the timing is immediately amplified with celestial confirmation.
The moment the horse whinnied, lightning and thunder came out of a clear sky. This divine signal instantly cemented Darius' election as foreordained. The companions leap off their horses to do obeisance, recognizing the hand of fate in Darius' victory.
But the source material, almost suspiciously, provides an alternative account, suggesting the election was even more deeply manipulated and less reliant on nocturnal conditioning.
Yes, and the existence of the second story speaks to the importance of the cunning, regardless of the precise mechanism. In this version, Oberes uses his hand to touch the mare, transfers the scent to his breeches, and then, as the 6 horses are released at sunrise, he holds his hand directly to the nostrils of Darius's horse.
So the immediate, intense, manufactured stimulus forces the neigh and snort at the precise moment required.
Both accounts stress that the election was won through deliberate foresight and the loyalty of the groom.
So Darius, son of Hystaspes, is made king in 521 BC. The chronicle confirms the immediate scale of his success. The entire breadth of Asia, which Cyrus and Cambyses had subdued, was made subject to him. He successfully stabilized the empire after months of anarchy.
And there's one notable exception which highlights the importance of shrewd diplomacy: the Arabians. The source is very clear that they never yielded the obedience of slaves, but were united by friendship, having granted Cambyses crucial passage into Egypt.
And Darius was shrewd enough to maintain this functional, negotiated relationship rather than attempt to conquer them.
Very shrewd. He immediately set about consolidating his power through a series of crucial political marriages, integrating himself into the various fractured branches of the royal family and securing the loyalty of his immediate conspirators.
These strategic marriages were essential for restoring legitimacy and healing the civil war.
Absolutely. He marries 3 women from Cyrus's immediate lineage: Atossa, the powerful daughter of Cyrus,
Who had been the widow of both Cambyses and the Magian, allowing Darius to absorb the legitimacy of the former kings and dissolving the stain of the Magian.
right, and also Artistone, a virgin daughter of Cyrus, and Parmes, the daughter of the real Smerdis, Cyrus's murdered son.
By marrying the daughters of both the legitimate and murdered Smerdis, Darius ensured his own children would have an undeniable claim to the bloodline legitimacy that he himself lacked.
And finalizing the political settlement, he also married the daughter of Otanus, the very woman who risked her life to discover the Magian's secret. These unions transformed political alliances into binding family ties,
Securing the loyalty of his most powerful allies. His reign is immortalized in stone. Darius establishes a carved monument, the figure of a horseman, with an inscription that specifically emphasizes the role of cunning and loyalty, rather than divine right or military conquest.
The inscription specifically reads, "Darius, son of Hystaspes, aided by the excellence of his horse," naming the horse, "and of Oberes his groom, won the kingdom of Persia."
That's powerful political propaganda.
It is. Darius ensures that the official permanent record acknowledges that the fate of the empire hinged on a groom's trick, cementing the value of calculated foresight and the loyalty of a low-ranking but clever servant. He legitimizes his unconventional ascent for all time.
This deep dive has shown us how a single, paranoid action Cambyses executing his brother created a political vacuum that required immense personal risk, forensic investigation, and ultimate cunning to resolve.
The entire fate of the Achaemenid world was decided by a dying king's confession, a horrified daughter's touch, and a debate over the very nature of human governance.
And the ultimate irony is that Darius secured the throne, not through pure hereditary right or crushing military force, but through a philosophical debate where monarchy was rationally declared the best system.
Immediately followed by an engineered horse trick. I mean, what does it mean when the fate of an empire hinges on the loyalty of a groom and the biology of a mare? It underscores that even the grandest politics can turn on the most absurd, specific, and intimate details.
As you reflect on this chaotic transfer of power, consider the legacy of Prexaspes. His public, honorable death secured the verifiable truth the conspirators needed, essentially saving the empire by sacrificing himself.
But the Magian's brief reign, which he died to expose, secured the popular desire for tax relief and relief from military service.
Which raises an important question for you to mull over. Was the Magian a true tyrant? Or simply the lesser of 3 evils, Cambyses' homicidal madness, the Magian's tax breaks and popular rule, or Darius's eventual monarchy?
Something to ponder as you reflect on the fragility and surprising mechanisms of power consolidation.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.